Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. And I can see we have possibly a few more members of the public here. We have a lot of staff here tonight, so that's awesome. Let me see here. So, one thing, even before we get started, I just want to mention that we'd love, for the sake of there are people on Zoom, for the sake of them and all of us in the room, when you speak, if you could speak loudly so that everyone can hear you. I'd really appreciate that. And the other thing I just want to mention is that we have just a lot of content tonight. So normally I'm pretty liberal about how long people talk about a topic, but tonight, because of that, we're going to ask. I'm going to try to keep an eye on my timer here and ask you to speak, maybe to hold your comments on a topic to about 2 minutes. Of course, that doesn't apply to staff who are answering questions, but this would be for the public and primarily the commissioners. So that would be really helpful. So let us get started. Okay. And Bill brought this wonderful, so I can finally be a formal chair now. Reach me. All right. The meeting is called to order. That was a little loud. Yeah. The meeting is called to order. And so would the secretary please do roll call?
Manny McKelly.
Here.
Bill DiVincenzi.
Present.
Glenn Garfunkel.
Here.
Lucia Marquez.
She emailed that she was to make today.
Okay. Ruth Marino. Karen Nelson. Victor Niemeyer.
Yeah, I guess I hear.
Philip Remaker. Here. Macwin Savio Souza.
Here.
Tracy Wang.
Here.
Rio Wabayashi.
Here. Wakabayashi. It's too long.
Well, we do have two folks that are absent, but we do still have a quorum. And, all right, so what I would like to do, since you've all been introduced by your name, I would love to this time to have go around the room and have members of the staff and the public introduce themselves. For the staff, if you could mention, your name and the role you play, would be great. And if you'd like to start.
Sure. Manuel Pineda. I'm a new deputy city manager for the city. Started about 3 months ago. I replaced Kip Harkness, if you knew Kip.
Oh,
Welcome.
welcome, yes.
Thank you.
Scott Green, Senior Government Affairs Manager for San Jose Clean Energy.
Stephen Jimenez, Legislative Affairs Specialist with San Jose Clean Energy.
Jean Soleil with the Power Procurement Team of the Department of Energy.
Paulo Navarro, Deputy Director of Power Resources for San Jose Clean Energy.
Zach Strike, Assistant Director in Energy Department, San Jose Clean Energy.
Chris Samuelson, I'm visiting Bill from Phoenix. I taught him a lot. He knows about global warming and things like that.
Jasmine Jane, Assistant Environmental Services Specialist with Climate Smart.
Lisa Charpentier, I'm a member of the public.
I'm Shruti Manoj. I'm a 10th grader at a local high school, and I'm also a member of Silicon Valley Climate Action, Youth Action.
I'm Kayla, rising senior and member of San Jose Youth Climate Action Team.
Welcome. Thank you all for being here. And is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we move into the agenda at this point?
No, but I mean, I guess if we're doing introductions, should we go around the table as well, just for the sake of our new commissioners? So Ann Bayless, I'm a supervising environmental services specialist with Climate Smart, formerly environmental services, currently energy department.
Derek Chitapong, San Jose Clean Energy. I am a staff specialist and I will be the secretary of this meeting.
Philip Remaker, Commissioner.
Victor Niemeyer, Commissioner. Glenn Garfunkel, Commissioner.
Tracy Wayne, Commissioner.
Karen Nelson, Commissioner.
Bill DeVincenzi, District 8 Commissioner.
I'm Macwin. I'm new here. I'm also a commissioner.
Sorry about that. Sorry to cut you off.
You're
Cut
good.
you off. I'm Rio Wakabayashi. I'm also a new commissioner here.
I'm Manu Vakha, and I'm a youth representative commissioner.
I think we have a couple of people we're doing introductions that just arrived. If you could just mention, if your staff, mention your name and your role, or if you're a member of the public, that you're public.
Chris Bacon, member of the public, professor, Santa Clara University, Environmental Studies and Sciences Department.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. It helps us all know each other a little better. All right, the next, if you have your agendas out, we now are going through the orders of the day, which essentially is the agenda. But what I'd like to do is to verify that there aren't any additional agenda items, orders of the day that you would like to add at this time. And this would be for the commissioners. So if not, is there a motion to accept the orders of the day?
Motion.
Bill DeVincenzi, is there a second?
Second.
And Manny seconds. Now that we have a motion on the floor, is there any discussion, anything you forgot or you want to add at this point? And if not, could we have a vote to accept the orders of the day as is?
Aye.
And all aye, and aye, it looks like it's a unanimous approval of the motion. All right, now on to the public record. And do we have any last minute public records to add? No, we're good. All right, then we'll just move on. Now, this is an opportunity for the public, and it's great that you all are here. Thank you very much. This is an opportunity for you to speak on any item and that does not appear on the agenda. So if there's anything that you want to share at this point in time, this is your opportunity to do it. You have a maximum of a couple minutes to share. And remember to probably speak up so we can all hear you. And raise your hand if you do have anything you'd like to say. Sure.
I'll clarify that this is for everything that is not on an agendized item.
Right, exactly.
Hi again, I'm Kayla, and I'm urging the San Jose Climate Advisory Commission to pass the resolution of support for Senate Bill 684, also known as Assembly Bill 1243. Mainly for two reasons. First of all, because sufficient compensation is needed for people who are directly affected by climate disasters. According to The Guardian, major gas companies Exxon and Chevron made about $2 trillion in profit since 1990. And because a lot of these climate disasters, just alone within like LA fires and within California, cost about $250 billion. So it's only right that these big companies making trillions of dollars just set aside a couple $100 billion to help people within different states who were directly affected by the climate emergencies that they caused due to the greenhouse gas emissions. And the second reason is because the federal government has been becoming increasingly unreliable, especially due to President Trump's cuts to FEMA. So because federal response is, again, because of how unreliable it is, this bill would ensure that 40% of these funds taken from gas companies would go to helping disadvantaged communities who were hit the hardest due to these climate disasters.
And what's the number of the bill again?
Senate bill or Assembly bill? Which number?
Oh, yeah, both.
Senate Bill 684 and Assembly Bill 1243.
Now, Anne, is this part of the agenda?
I do believe it is. It's okay that we took the
Yeah.
comment now, but we'll just cross-reference back to your comment when we get to that.
Exactly, thanks. That's what I was wondering about, but thank you for sharing. That's great. Are there any other comments from the public at this time here in the room? All right, well, thank you for your comment. Really appreciate it. And let's move on to the consent calendar. So this is basically the minutes of the last meeting, the May 15th meeting. And do any of the commissioners have any corrections to that May 15th minutes, to those minutes? All right, if not, then I guess could I entertain a motion from someone to approve the consent calendar? Victor and Glenn seconds. So all those in favor of approving the consent calendar as is, please say aye, raise your hand. Thank you very much. I think that's, it's unanimous. All right, moving right along.
I don't know what to do.
All right, now we're moving on to reports and information. And there are a couple of attachments. I think attachment A that you have in your documents is for the is old business. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Is the Climate Smart 6-month look ahead. So if you could just take a look at it for a minute, if you haven't already. And does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so it says August 11th that the Climate Advisory Commission, which is us, fiscal year annual report and work plan are going to be presented. Who does that? Are we, I mean, this is our report, so who's doing it on our behalf?
Yeah, I do. I present it. I bring it to you. So usually it's a consent item, but Councilmember Cohen did request an associated presentation this time, so we will be speaking about the work plan and your report this time.
So why would we have somebody from our commission there?
Why not have someone?
Should we have someone at that? Since they're presenting our plan.
It certainly would be a great idea. I don't know that it's a requirement.
Not required.
Not a requirement, I know.
But it would be good. Are you thinking of doing that, Bill? Do you have the time or?
No.
Okay. So that is August 11th. Do you know generally what time that would happen?
So the Transportation and Environment Committee begins at 1:30 p.m. It's a Monday. And I don't know for sure, but usually we're an earlier item on the agenda. So I would say it's probably not too far past 1:30.
Is there anyone, Glenn, are you thinking you'd like to? No? Oh, you have another comment? Well, I will see if I can make that. I'll talk with you, Ann, and see if I can attend on the 11th. I haven't got my calendar right in front of me, but I'll see if I can do that. Usually my Mondays are open.
Sure.
And if anyone else wants to attend, it's a great opportunity, you guys, to get familiar with the council, but I know you probably both work, so that might be a challenge.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
I have to check my calendar too.
Okay, so I'll just put, Bill, that you might be there.
It's interesting, fun.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah, any other, Glenn, did you have another question?
Did we get a comeback from planning on our ordinance request into the work plan?
They said, I added the September item on there and I spoke with
Just make
Ruth and she confirmed that they would be able to come and update.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I couldn't remember.
Okay. Any other questions on this look ahead? Anything you want to add? Anything you're not sure about? All right, so I don't think we need to, I guess we need to approve this. Is that correct, Ann?
No, this one's just information.
Okay, great. Then let's move on, and I have to get my, there we go. Okay. Now, we have another thing on reports, which is an update on the commissioner vacancy and recruitment. Ann, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, we have 2 new commissioners, so I think part of that's already been, obvious. And I guess the only other thing that I wanted to mention, Karen and I discussed, had a call recently, and she brought up that her first term would be coming to an end at the end of December, and she was curious what the process is from there. So all commissioners, it's 4-year terms, and you're eligible to serve for 2 4-year terms, but at the end of your first term, about 90 days before, you should receive an email from the clerk's office saying that you'll need to reapply, and then it would still need to go through the approval process through the mayor's office, so if anybody else was interested.
And then could you share a little bit more for just everyone's knowledge, awareness, just in general, how the terms work in general, in terms of the, the number of terms the person can be
So
active?
2 4-year terms, and then, so 8 years essentially, unless you're filling an interim position. So like Anthony left before his term was up, so Macwin's technically ending at the end of December for his first term and would need to reapply for a second term at that point. And then after the 8 years, you would need to be, leave the seat vacant for another commissioner for at least 1 term or 4 years, and then you could reapply again after that.
We can talk about this privately, but it might be something that others care about. I think I actually, as both of you have done, replaced someone who left. I'm pretty sure about that. So I think I've just been active for 3 years. So because I replaced someone, does that still mean that I've got a short term, that it's the 4-year term, even though I've only been a commissioner for 3 years?
Yeah, it should be. So you would just, basically your term would start when the other person's left off, which is what the situation Macwin's in. So his first term ends in December, just like yours, even though he just became a commissioner, because he's
interesting. Okay.
vacated.
Well, that's good to know. Okay. All right, let's move on to old business. Yeah, Bill, did you have a question?
No, it's just at this point, they've already been introduced, so we don't need to do anything more.
Well, unless that's a great point. It would be great, you've mentioned who you are, but could you share a little bit about yourselves, why you're interested in climate, what your experience and working with climate issues has been in the past?
Yes, I can go first.
Sure.
Yeah, so I said my name is Macwin, and I'm an engineer by profession, and I did my undergrad in chemical engineering, and I went directly into the opposite side of what we're trying to do, which is work in oil and gas. And then I got excited about all the renewable energy and batteries and stuff. So I applied for grad school. During master's, I did research on batteries, and then that led me to a job in a battery field. So I currently work in a battery company, been there for 6 years. And I thought, why not, use my knowledge or maybe some way contribute to San Jose. I was reading up about the San Jose, the carbon zero neutrality, the package that's there online, and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And I want to see what's up with San Jose, and I want to see maybe I can contribute a little bit. That's what led to my application. So, and I'm excited I got it. It's only 6 months, but we'll see how it goes.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. All right, I'll do it in less than a minute. I'm Rio again, once again. Yeah, kind of similar to Macwin. I was actually passionate about climate change even as actually a high school student like yourself, and I majored in chemistry as an undergrad so that I could work on do research on climate change materials and such. I did, as an undergrad, I did thermoelectrics, and as a grad student, I worked on fuel cell and battery materials, mostly fuel cells. And as a professional, actually, I was Macwin's coworker until a year ago at the same battery company. I know how funny how that works out. But just making progress on the science aspect just isn't enough, and you do need the policy aspects. I was always interested in getting involved, and I found this opportunity, and I applied, and I got it. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, glad you're both here. Thanks. Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks, Bill, for suggesting that. Now, let's move on in the agenda to old business. And there is one item there, I believe there's just one, which is the annual report for 24-25. And we had discovered that we wanted to do a few updates to that report. before it's finalized. And so a number of us did provide some updates to Anne, which have been incorporated. But if you all could just take a quick look, if you have already, I just want to validate that those comments that you listed, I'm sure are there. And if there are any other comments that you want to make for the report, anything you want to have added or modified.
Yes, I do have one more thing that I would like to be added from the May 15th meeting. This
Okay.
was where we reviewed and eventually approved the memo on funding to the Climate Smart program, non-personnel funding from the City of San Jose budget. I don't think this was included in the final draft so far. So I drafted up some language to add to it. Should I read it now as an amendment?
Yeah, that would be great. So then we can finalize it at this point then.
So in the left column, objective of the fiscal year 24 to 25, I have received briefing on Commissioner memo regarding Climate Smart 2025 to 26 budget. In the status and accomplishments file, I have approved memo drafted by Commissioner Mani Vakela, noting concern about reduction in non-personnel funding to Climate Smart program in the shift to the Energy Department, and recommending that this funding be reinstated or increased to levels from previous years.
That is fairly lengthy compared to how things are written here. But Anne, can we leave that as is, or do you want it to try to summarize it a little bit?
It's up to all of you. I'm fine with whatever.
With leaving it as
however
is?
you all decide.
Okay.
Time is short, let's leave it as is.
So if you can just make sure that Anne gets that, if everyone agrees, then with that addition, any other comments? Any comments from the public about this is the annual work that we did in the previous year? Okay, can I entertain a motion to approve with this modification?
I move to approve as modified.
Phil, and is there a second? Glenn seconds it with Phil's motion. All in favor of voting yes for the report with the modification? Looks like everybody's got their hands up. Okay, aye, and so that passes unanimously. Okay. So, moving on. Now we're on to new business. And we have I'm really, really extremely pleased that we're talking about legislation today. That's really wonderful. So we have three folks. This is attachment C and D that they'll talk about. We have Scott Green, Senior Government Affairs Manager for SJCE, Steve Jimenez, Legislative Affairs Specialist for SJCE, and Jasmine Jane, Assistant Environmental Services Specialist for Climate Smart. If you all want to just go ahead and get started with your presentation, that would be great. Would you like us to hold our questions or ask questions as we go?
Whatever you prefer.
Whatever, it's okay? All right.
Yeah.
So I think I'll just let people go ahead while it's on their mind to go ahead and ask questions as we go then, if that's okay.
And I guess I'd add up front, there's a lot in here. And we are happy to follow up after this meeting, if people want to have a deeper discussion beyond what the slides would allow for.
Okay, fantastic, great.
Okay, so I'm Scott, and Stephen and Jasmine are all here. You've met us. We're going to share in this presentation. Darren, can you advance it? Is that all right? Okay, so here's our agenda. We're going to cover the legislative cycle just to acquaint people with where we are, the state budget briefly, some state legislation that we think is worth highlighting, and a slide about the federal landscape. So here's where we are in the ledge cycle, from bill introduction in February all the way till bills make it to the governor's desk in October. So that's the journey right there. Highlighted is where we are now. The second House policy committees had their last meetings today. They're heading on summer recess from July 18th through August 18th. And budget items and high-profile bills will be negotiated over the next month. And then it'll be a mad dash for 2 months through second house and appropriations, and then to the governor's desk. And then at the bottom there is the budget timeline, January budget, the governor releases, may revise, and then the budget is enacted in the summer. And then special session we may see in the fall to wrap up other budget items. So I wish the news were better. The not so rosy state budget. California approved a $321 billion budget in June and closed a $12 billion deficit, mostly through cuts, deferrals, and fund shifts. Several factors contributed. The new federal administration, which is something we'll talk about later, the LA wildfires, and increased baseline costs for key state programs. Expected budget shortfalls are in the coming years, and so we're going to be looking closely at how that affects the climate and energy budget. Some clean energy impacts, it reverts roughly $315 million from the previously approved climate energy package. If you remember a few years ago, there was a $54 billion budget. We are not in those times right now. As far as it relates to the reversions, the administration and the legislature will work to have Prop 4 backfill some of these reversions. So those conversations will happen over the summer. The REACH code moratorium, there's a slide on that later, so I don't want to say too much, but it was swept into the budget. It was previously a policy bill. This got a lot of attention. We are watching it closely, but I'll talk a little bit about that later. And then the self-gen incentive program I'll highlight. There's been a lot of coordinated CCA advocacy on SGIP. To allow for CCAs to be eligible for this funding. There's some $280 million available at the PUC. And, we view this as an opportunity to bring state dollars to stack with our local rebates and incentives and get deeper levels of affordability, but CCAs are not eligible at the moment. So a lot of coordinated advocacy among CCAs with PUC staff, with budget staff, with the governor's office, so more to come on that front. And then I'll just flag again on the budget side, Prop 4 and then Cap and Invest are areas that Jasmine will cover, but they are revenue streams that we view as vital to keep the clean energy agenda and the climate agenda alive in California. So I'll pass it to Jasmine.
Cool. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so to get into I'm Jasmine, by the way, if you don't remember. To get into the cap and trade program, which is the statewide program that is currently undergoing the reauthorization process. Just for a little bit of background, the cap and trade program, basically under the program, the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, sets a cap or a maximum of statewide greenhouse gas emissions that major polluters can emit. And so for each unit of greenhouse gas emissions over this cap, polluters basically have to pay a price, either emissions allowances or purchase as offsets by supporting other greening projects that have quantifiable greenhouse gas reductions. And so polluters that fall under this cap can then sell their emissions allowances, which basically creates like a market-based system to meet reduction targets. And revenue from this program then goes into the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So currently the program in its current state is authorized through 2030, and negotiations are currently underway to start the reauthorization process, which would extend it until 2045. So some of the main points of negotiation are, one, program design and what the program is going to look like, and then two, where these GGRF, Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, funds are going to be pointed towards. So in terms of program design, just a brief summary, there are some negotiations on whether, for some more background on the program, this program sets decreasing limits in this cap. So there's negotiations on whether tightening this cap could raise fuel and energy prices for everyday people. So there's negotiations around solutions for that in the program design. And in the GGRF spending, if you can see on the pie chart there, that shows, it's kind of small. I don't know if you're able to zoom in at all, but kind of shows the different sectors where spending has been used from 2013 to 20. And so, yeah, I think as Scott mentioned before, because of budgetary constraints, some of this money is being used as an alternative to the general fund. So 1 billion is being pointed towards CAL FIRE for fiscal year 25-26. And I guess another area of contention is, this big high-speed rail project piece. So, I guess the contention there is the amount of money that's been directed towards the project and then arguably seeing the benefits of that money. So there's negotiations around those funds as well.
So is that gonna actually happen? I mean, the high-speed rail, is there so many, I keep saying, articles saying it's not gonna happen, it is gonna happen. That's about $6 billion there.
Yeah, I don't know if I have the authority to say whether it will or not. I know, obviously a lot of
Our best guess.
money has been directed towards it. So I think that's where a lot of the conflicting opinions are. Whether more money into it will see benefits.
And a lot of money's come back in our electric bills.
Right.
Twice a year
Yep.
we got 70, 60 something bucks.
Glenn.
Question, is the spending that's being discussed, spending after 2030, after reauthorization, or is it in this like next year? Which fiscal years is that?
Yeah, so
For discussion.
it's for the reauthorization. So
So
2030.
any changes will be after 2030?
Yes, I believe so,
including the spending part?
Yeah.
Okay.
One question about that, since there's a lot of contention about it, and it's, an important program. Is San Jose going to be taking an active role in giving advice about the program?
Yeah, so I'm not involved in those. Yeah, do you want to take it? Go ahead.
Yeah, because there's so much here, like I'll give you an example. The Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, like we've historically gotten a lot of money to San Jose for like the BART Phase 2 project as an example. There's the high-speed rail project, which in a perfect world, it's gonna end at Deer, it'll hit Dearborn Station and then go up to, so, I think the city will weigh in, but it will probably be from the manager's office in sort of a one-voice approach, because where are your priorities, where do you want to see the money flow to? And as you can see in the pie chart, there's a lot of choices to be made. So I think I hope I'm not dodging the question, but a lot of city priorities tied up in this program.
Right, yeah. Well, it's really what you're saying is it's a high-level citywide issue that the key people in the city need to make decisions about. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you can move on to the next slide. Prop 4, kind of a mouthful. The Safe Drinking Water, Wildfire Prevention, Drought Preparedness, and Clean Air Bond Act of 2024 was passed in the November 2024 election and authorizes $10 billion in bonds for climate resilience projects across 8 categories, which are shown in that table. Governor Newsom proposed this multi-year spending plan through 2039 to 2040, and basically shows, I don't know if you can see in that first row or column there, that 2.7 billion is proposed to be directed towards fiscal year 25-26, which is about a quarter of the 10 billion funds. For San Jose, again, this offers another opportunity to compete for some of the grants and the funds coming through Prop 4 for climate resilience. As Scott mentioned before, with like a not so rosy state budget, federal landscape, I think this offers more money to fill in and invest in climate more. Yeah. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Stephen now. Or sorry, this is me too. Yep. Next slide is me. Yeah, so just a couple bills that I wanted to flag in terms of climate smart goals and transportation. Yeah, as was mentioned already, the SB 684 and AB 1243, the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund Act of 2025. I know that's listed on the agenda, so we can get into it more a little bit later, but I'll just briefly summarize it. So this bill would require fossil fuel polluters to pay into a climate superfund to cover damages caused by greenhouse gas emissions. And it would involve a climate cost study, among other measures, to identify those and assess those damages between 1990 and 2045. So we did write letters of support for those two twin bills. And yeah, they were inactive starting in April, but are now 2-year bills. So although they're currently inactive, there's still potential for them to have action.
What's the difference between 2-year bill and active?
So the legislative cycle, I don't know, Scott, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, let Stephen, but I mean, okay, go ahead.
Oh, so typically it starts off like an odd number year. That's the beginning of the cycle, right? It'll kick off to an even year number. But essentially, it's whatever legislation doesn't get out of its original house or just stays within a certain policy committee, there's going to be an opportunity to come in January to move those policies forward. The statutory deadline is you have to get it out before or out of January by the end of the month, right? And then
So
those
2-year bill straddles more than 1 year, in other words.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
All right.
Yeah, so those are those. Yeah, we can get into those later, like I said. And then, yeah, I'll just flag the second one as well, AB 39, the Local Electrification Planning Act. This one would require local jurisdictions to prepare and adopt a plan for electrification, basically, for zero emission technologies. And it specifically, there's a lot of emphasis on benefits towards disadvantaged communities and groups. So I think we would have to, we're looking into if this were passed, if the city of San Jose is compliant to it, but I think overall this is something we would be in support of and want other local jurisdictions across California to comply with, as we have electrification plans ourselves. Yeah, now I'll pass it over to Stephen to go over some San Jose clean energy items.
Well, hey everybody, great to see you all. Thank you for the opportunity to come present. Sorry to make you all turn around this way now. But just to quickly highlight, I'm sure you're all aware, there's been a whole plethora of energy bills introduced this year. Main topic really being is affordability, right? And we, as SJCE, have been engaged with policymakers, offices, policy consultants, and so forth, stakeholders, really just offer technical assistance and express our priorities on the legislative front or express concerns, right? And in terms of priorities, affordability being one of them, of course, pathways being a hot topic this year. Ensuring that we're able to improve forecasting for our incoming large load customers as well, and really just maintaining CCA autonomy too, right? And so in the upcoming slides, we'll just touch on some of these issues right here and flag a few bills for consideration as well. And as I previously mentioned, ensuring affordability remains a priority in the legislature, and you really just see this theme throughout many of the bills in terms of like ratepayer savings and so forth. But a few bills worth highlighting, I should say, is SB 636. The City of San Jose took a support position. This was essentially providing 3 months deferment for those who fall behind on their bills, their monthly bills, if they experience a hardship, right? Unfortunately, this got held in the Senate Appropriations, which due to cost pressures associated with the bill. But we, intend to stay engaged should the author decide to move forward with the bill in the 2-year cycle, and really just be supportive however we can be. But the ones that also is getting some notoriety at this point is SB 254 and AB 825. Sorry, getting tongue twisted there. And I apologize. These already have gone out of the committees here. We drafted these slides a little bit beforehand. But essentially, they're both in appropriations, from my understanding, and they cover, just various issues. It's kind of, almost like a Christmas tree bill, so to speak, where it's seeking to improve affordability, right, through different lenses, whether it's touching on the climate credit, as we were discussing earlier, focusing on public transit, transmission financing, limiting the rate of return for IOUs and some of their capital investments, improving wildfire coordination and so forth. And oops, sorry, I just lost my place here on my notes. I apologize. But just one thing to highlight really is AB 825. As I mentioned before, has some of these topics covered here, but there is a statewide demand side management program review task force. And what that's essentially going to do, as proposed right now, is review all energy efficiency and demand response programs and provide recommendations to either consolidate, close, or essentially consolidate or close these programs that don't produce any ratepayer savings or don't advance some of the state's climate and equity goals, right? So CalCCA, we remain engaged. CalCCA is also concerned about the autonomy issues with this type of proposal, right? And we're anticipating for negotiations to continue in the summer recess to hammer out the details. I'll pause there to see if there's any questions.
What's San Jose's position in 825?
On 825, we haven't taken a position on this one yet, but given the demand side management program language, as I was mentioning before, we're just still discussing and hoping to sort that out. Yeah.
And Stephen, did you say CalCCA was OUA on that?
Sorry, I apologize. CalCCA is OUA on this bill, meaning it's opposed unless amended. Really, the demand side management task force being the biggest sticking point for us.
What's OUA?
Opposed unless amended.
Opposed unless amended. I apologize.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Karen, if I could, just because we're probably going to say CalCCA a couple times, and maybe for the new commissioners, so CalCCA is our industry association, and there's 25 CCAs in California, and that represents about 14 million Californians. So
And a CCA is what?
Is a community choice aggregation program. That is a local government entity and our mayor and council sets our rates, approves our programs, and our long-term contracts.
San Jose Clean Energy is a CCS.
It's a CCS.
The demand side is the design demand side management is the DSGS program is that what you're talking about?
It could be like some of our local programs here, right? Like perhaps Keep Rewards or some of the other programs, I'm just skipping off the top of my head, perhaps like Eco Home programs and so forth. So not so much of like the statewide program, the DSGS, but just more here.
If you can answer very briefly, or Skip, what is the issue associated with demand side programs that gets CalCCA associated versus San Jose up in parks?
No, we still have the same perspective, right? Like we want to maintain the ability to offer these programs and help the state reach our climate goals. The state is just really prioritizing affordability and is kind of scrutinizing these programs and so forth. Yeah.
And the scope of affordability includes all users, commercial and residential, or just residential, we're thinking?
I have to get back to you on that. I believe it's residential, but I can circle back on that. I apologize.
Okay. My background is in data centers, and the data center community is very interested in power and very uninterested in the current prices, which is why Santa Clara is getting a lot of them.
Understandable.
Just because talking about the feds is going to come up ongoing here. So for the power program, is the federal LIH EAP program, and I really don't know what it stands for, is that gone? Or it's a low income home energy assistance, I guess. So is that gone?
I haven't heard that unless you want to chime in.
I'm not certain of that. Are you referring to the power program that's up?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that in 825 or 254, there's a new program that is established but not funded to fund things that might otherwise be paid for by ratepayer funds.
Oh, okay.
So
that are driven by state policies in particular.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That seems like that would be difficult to even track and know how much money you have to allocate to overcome that loss of federal money.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Wow. Challenges. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And that's it for this slide. If we could. Yeah, and just to continue the conversation, we also have a high notoriety bill, SB 540. This is the pathways that many folks refer to, which essentially allows the CAISO and IOUs to participate in a voluntary energy market, often referred to as the RO. And really, this has been an exhaustive process from the Westwide Governance Pathways Initiative. It's been a multi-state effort stemming back from like late 2023, so almost 2 years, right? Just kind of getting stakeholders' feedback on the process and how to, expand our energy market, and particularly on the west side of the nation. Supporters, really contend that this might be a fundamental to our future in terms of our energy, improves affordability for ratepayers, and really just helps us reach our carbon neutrality and other environmental goals. This is obviously at a very high level, right? And CalCCA was, go ahead.
Oh, just, would you mind just defining the acronyms? So for the benefit of the new people and anybody else in the room, what is the CAISO?
So the CAISO is the California
Independent System Operator.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Okay. And the WWGPI essentially is the Westwide Governance Pathways Initiative, which is basically just a larger effort to regionalize the west side market, right? Supporters have relayed those arguments in terms of resilient future, improving affordability, and helping the state reach its climate goals, right? But this has been a contested bill. Bill opponents also have expressed concerns in terms of us as a state forfeiting our authority as an energy provider, right? Potential impacts to our renewable portfolio standards, and really just the need to have more legislative and oversight over this whole process in terms of how we participate with the RO and whether we're able to withdraw from that regional organization. At this time, I apologize. So this bill actually was set to be heard in the Assembly Energy Committee earlier this week. The chair had made a statement saying that she is making a commitment to work on this over the summer recess with the big three being the Assembly, Senate, and the governor's office, and really just to hammer out the details. And we agree in the sense that this is an urgent item, but we need to do this right, and do so properly. So it's a delay, not the end of the road, right? I'll just pause there to see if there's any other questions you might have.
Okay, I have a question on 8. Go back to 825.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand. Does it overlap a fair amount with 254?
Oh yeah, yes it is. Okay. So it's essentially.
Is it sort of parallel?
Yeah, so 825 is the Assembly's version of affordability, the affordability proposal, and then 254 is the Senate's version. It will likely happen over the summer recess. They'll continue negotiations and so forth. Yeah. Okay. And I think the next slide is actually Scott here.
Yeah. Okay, it's me again. So AB 306 and AB 130. So this is focused on REACH codes. The city adopts the California Building Code every 3 years, and state law allows us to go above the building code, hence a REACH code. AB 306 was a policy bill that made it out of the first house and became a budget trailer bill. It was inserted into the housing trailer bill and never got set in the second house. And so what it does is it puts a moratorium on REACH codes until 2031. The policy underpinning is that, it was going to help LA rebuild rebuild after the wildfires, and that there would be affordability impacts for new construction. The CCAs and the environmental community sought a carve out for existing buildings and to push the moratorium start date back to the middle of 2026. And again, that was unsuccessful. I do want to point out that Councilmember Cohen lent an important voice to this and authored an op-ed in Cal Matters advising against the moratorium. Unfortunately, the budget trailer bill was passed. It was a leadership-backed bill. We advocated with the author's office, the committee consultants, our state delegation. CalCCA took an oppose and less amend position. And so we are figuring through this. with an October 1st moratorium deadline. And, working through the timelines internally and seeing, if we can bring something forward to council.
You guys think it came from governor's level? Force this?
I mean, there was a strong coalition opposing this of environmental groups, and then it just got swept right into the trailer bill. So, I mean,
And it wasn't, it seemed like there was no effort to really focus it to LA.
No,
Right?
not at
It was
all.
like,
Well, and if it
we're
was
gonna go
about
statewide.
new construction and housing costs, what everyone was asking for was the carve out for existing buildings. And so it didn't sort of match up with, yeah, so.
No explanation.
No explanation.
Okay.
So, we can advance that, Darren?
What, to help us understand, maybe move toward understanding how the legislative cycle works, et cetera. Now that that trailer bill's been approved, what now can be done about it, if anything?
Yeah, about this particular one?
Yeah.
So normally a bill would go into effect on January 1st of the coming year unless it has an urgency clause and moves quicker. There can be cleanup legislation sometimes. In this particular bill, there are exemptions for general plan alignment, as an example. So locals might not be bound by the October 1st timeline if an exemption, if there's, if people feel like there's strong footing for the exemption. So there are exemptions in this bill. So that's another. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. The best answer is another bill or cleanup legislation.
So we could enact another bill that would negate this, basically this bill.
I would just say that leadership really wanted this, and when leadership wants a bill, that's kind of the way it goes.
But there's always like these little loopholes that basically the general plan alignment isn't, I wouldn't call it a loophole, but it's a way that maybe the definition of that could be expanded or defined more clearly to take advantage of that for reach codes. Is that true?
Yeah, I think we're just trying to understand it internally, and have it reviewed
Oh, okay.
by folks.
Thanks. Thank you.
I think we have another question.
One more question on that. Are there any reach codes in particular that the city of San Jose has been studying or pursuing that we're now considering accelerating to meet this deadline?
Yeah, I don't want to get out of my depth too quickly. Zach can I take a, yeah, I think with existing buildings, they're looking at AC to heat pump and maybe some pre-wiring when you swap out appliances, some pre-wiring requirements. But I don't know that for certain. I know that there are jurisdictions throughout the county and in San Mateo County that are entertaining reach codes and meeting the deadline, and I think those are the areas that people are focused on. I think this is you.
Oh, yeah, just up on the slide above, I apologize. Just quickly highlighting a few accountability bills that the legislature is continuing to review and move through the whole legislative process. And again, this kind of goes in the same vein of affordability, right? Increasing transparency, the spending of some of the IOUs. But just to highlight a few is AB 1167, which is by Assemblymember Berman, just not too far from here, right? Prohibiting IOUs from using ratepayer funding for political influence activities, such as like lobbying, campaigning, and so forth, right? And very similar to that bill is SB 24 by Senator McNerney. And this is essentially preventing IOUs from using the same ratepayer funding, right? And then also disbarring them from using that same funding, ratepayer funding, to dissuade the municipalization of energy providers, right? And a quick note on 1167, this is actually a rerun of AB 938 last year. And for SB 24, we've actually met with our office to just kind of get a better sense of how far the bill's going and moving forward and hope to continue those conversations, right? And then lastly, just to highlight SB 332 by Senator Wahab, also not too far from here, right? Essentially establishes a study or succession plan for IOUs should they falter for whatever reason, right? And it really just increases some of the disconnection reportings for IOUs as well for households. And I'll pause there for questions.
A brief one. I thought there were laws on the books for going way back, sort of restricting utilities from getting rate base funding for rate base coverage for the lobbying and political activities. What's new about this?
So for this one in particular, it's putting it into statute some of those same regulations, right? And then two, on SB 24 at least, they make the argument that while there are those regulations in place, a lot of adjustments in terms of the accounting for the IOUs are kind of hiding some of these spendings in terms of campaigning and so forth and political influences. So they're trying just to close those loopholes and tee it up there.
Okay.
Great, yeah. And this is the next slide. Promise I won't walk through each of these bills unless you all desire to do so, but just to highlight a few here. Obviously AI technologies continue to advance, so just want to highlight a few data center bills that kind of just remain top of mind for legislators. Many of these are just seeking to increase transparency, the energy usage, water usage, and really just trying to mitigate the impacts to ratepayers as well. In terms of the geothermal package that's listed here, a lot of these bills are essentially just trying to deploy geothermal technologies to help with the intermittency when solar and wind and so forth aren't available, right? So some of these bills are just developing a statewide plan to help geothermal get online and really just expediting the permitting process for exploratory wells and just getting lower threshold geothermal projects on the grid. Again, some public transmission financing, just want to highlight those two bills, AB 825 and SB 254, as I mentioned before, in terms of public transmission financing in the larger realm of improving affordability, right? Unfortunately, SB 330 is not making that of the legislature this year. The legislature this year is a 2-year bill, but just quickly flagging that we were supportive of those efforts. And then lastly, this part labeled load forecasting, right, is the virtual power plants tab here. Really, the legislature is, again, the same vein of affordability, wants to promote technologies that are cost effective and help some of the load shifting to improve grid, avoid costly upgrades, right, and save our ratepayers across the state, not just San Jose, some money. And really just help us as the state reach our SB 846 load shifting goals, right? So yeah, that's it there. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Yeah, I guess, given that the commission's focus as a commission is, what is San Jose doing? Could you very quickly just go, identify the bill and do a thumbs up, down, or sideways, meaning it's support, oppose, or you're actively looking at it for each of those?
That's in the table, I think.
It's probably is, but yeah, could you just run through that real quick?
Yeah, in terms of the data centers, we're still engaging. This is a big priority for us as a city, right? I want to make sure we improve load forecasting. I don't think we've taken an official position on these, but it's just more of a monitor position, right?
Oh, for any of the data centers, it's sort of sideways, you're looking at it, okay. Okay, how about geothermal?
Geothermal, we have supported those 3 bills listed there. And some of them just coming from a city position, right? Some of them coming from San Jose directly. So yeah, we have been supportive of the geothermal package that's listed there.
Oh, you have not?
Oh, we have.
Oh, you have, okay. So it's thumbs up,
It's
okay.
listed, Kim. It says city support in parentheses at the end of each. The ones they
Oh, thank
support.
you. Oh, what am I doing? Thank you, appreciate that.
No problem.
And so without support, then you're just actively looking at them?
Yeah, monitoring it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Glenn.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. You can move on, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a smaller text for this slide, right?
Can I add, so
Yeah.
541, are you guys in alignment with CalCCA?
Yes, essentially. We were just a little cautious about the potential procurement mandate. I know this bill was recently heard in the Senate as Energy, or is it the Senate Assembly?
Yes.
Yeah, and so we're still examining the committee amendments. We're hopeful this can address some of CalCCA's concerns in terms of the procurement mandate and avoiding the whole increasing costs for ratepayers, right? But I haven't seen that language in print yet. So once that comes in,
There's no mandates in the bill.
I think the concern was that even though the bill said it wasn't a mandate, that this might procure, or basically require the CEC to have to establish the mandate and then trickle down that way.
It's a hypothetical. Or why the fear that having more information available will lead to a mandate?
I don't think it was necessarily just more transparency piece. We weren't opposed to that by any means. It's just.
But the bill is just saying we want to publish where different LSCs are or exceeding their.
I think the caution was like some of the load serving entity goals that were listed in the bill. I think that's some of the amendments that were taken out in committee, right? So that was kind of like the main concern. Like if they establish these goals, does that lead to a procurement mandate from the CEC and so forth?
Okay, thank you.
All right, federal landscape. When the San Jose Clean Energy and the city and Silicon Valley Clean Energy won a level 2 charging grant from DOT, Federal Highway Administration, for 200 level 2 chargers. It was a $15 million grant. And we thought it was coming in December, and then there was a change in administration, and it wasn't. And that was a little bit of a punch in the stomach. And it was going to serve disadvantaged communities. And then we went from that, and then we think, oh, that's pretty bad. Well, now the changing federal administration is really, really rapidly impacting the clean energy landscape. So this is about HR 1, or the big, beautiful bill. The budget reconciliation bill was signed on July 4th, some 900 pages. The big thing to flag here is the clean energy tax credits phase out. For commercial clean energy tax credits, wind and solar projects must be placed into service by December of 2027. Residential, okay.
I think they need to start, if they start construction by
2026.
26, like July 4th, 2026, yeah.
So then there's a safe harbor for, isn't that right?
Yeah, there's basically 2 ways to qualify for wind and solar. One of them is if you're in service by December 31st, 2027.
Right, yeah.
And the second is if you commence construction before July 4th, 2026, and you then enter into commercial operation 4 years after that.
Yeah. So it's not that tight.
No, that was the short version of it.
Yeah.
The residential and business energy efficiency tax credits, they phase out in 2025 and mid-2026. And then the EV tax credits phase out in, I guess, very quickly here, September 2025. There's also new restrictions on fiat foreign entities of concern, or FIOC. And these are for entities that are seeking to qualify for the ITC, the investment tax credit, and the production tax credit. And there's these new requirements. And if you're linked to you're linked to Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, you're not going to be eligible for the ITC and PTC. So lastly, I'll just flag that the unencumbered federal climate programs, and there were a lot, have been swept under HR 1. So we can't anticipate, a flow of federal dollars on the climate and energy front.
One thing you might want to do, because it certainly applies to me, is that you might want to do some sampling surveys for residential and business, because just because they've identified how long the credits will last, we're not getting our money. It's sitting there and it's not coming back to us, even though we clearly, we're actually at 2024 implementation. So you might, I don't know what the city could do if you discover that you've got a lot of residential and commercial people that are simply not, they're not sending the money to them, the credits that they deserve. I don't know what the city could do, but you might want to at least be aware that that's happening.
I know that we did a press release, I think, didn't we?
You're saying they're holding up people's refunds?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not getting into that. but okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So these are like rebate checks.
Right.
Federal, not your income tax.
Yeah, it's the tax credit.
Tax credit.
It's the tax credit
But
that
you get that when you file your taxes and that's taken out of the 2025?
It's taken, it's for the 2024 taxes. It's a tax credit that we deserve, but the IRS is not sending us the tax credit because my guess is because it relates to this particular clean energy.
Okay.
On my battery.
Yeah, let's keep going.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. Anyway, I just thought you might want to be aware, maybe if some, who knows what's going on with them, But anyway, just to be aware.
So that's where I hate to end on a downer, because this very much feels like that. But I guess if we're here with the Climate Commission, it's a good time to say that local climate action counts, and all of this work really counts more now than ever. So appreciate all you guys do as well.
Jordan Muldow, member of the public, just a couple comments. Is the city going to be supporting SB 71? I think I see in the spreadsheet it's listed as monitor. SB 71, I think, is extending some CEQA exemptions relating to building transit projects. And then I guess more for the commission. So there's also SB 63 that is going to be hopefully a regional measure to help fund transit operations. That's going through the legislature right now, and it would allow, if passed, it would allow us to potentially have a revenue measure in 2026 to fund VTA, Caltrain, BART, and the other regional operators, which is obviously good for the environment to not have our transit stop running. And then I think this bill is probably dead, I'm guessing. SB 381 from Senator Wahab. It's not a climate bill, but it had a provision in it that said that they wanted to ban unbundled parking for rentals. And so if that bill isn't dead, I hope that the staff will talk to Senator Wahab and ask her to remove that provision from the bill. That wouldn't be great.
I apologize, I'm not familiar if we're gonna take a position on those particular legislation. Some of those kind of intersect with transit and so forth, so that's something that we can take into consideration and circle back on. And then, I'm not too familiar with SB 381, that's the Wahab bill, right? I'm not super familiar with that, but we could definitely take a look and circle back.
Well, we can certainly reach out to the transportation department and therefore. And are there any other questions, comments?
So with that last slide of the federal legislation that just passed, is there somebody studying like how that's going to come down and then affect the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as far as it relates to the commercial clean energy tax credits and how that might impact our own portfolio. I think it'll affect portfolios in different ways based on what your project makeup looks like. We have a federal lobbying firm as well, and they're providing us information in real time about the impact, what we can anticipate. And I know on a lot of this, Treasury has to put out guidance in the next 45 days that we're gonna learn a lot from. So the short of it is we're monitoring it, but it's coming at us fairly quickly.
Just one more comment is that, you were asking about the acronyms earlier. I'm kind of lost on that, but I'll probably pick up on the acronyms, maybe same for Rio, but a little bit of context is gonna help a little. That's acronym is okay. Like when you say active or like it's partially passed or some, and then inactive. So that all of that is a little bit confusing right now for me. Thanks. But if it takes too much time, I can always bother you later.
You can over,
Yeah.
after years.
Well, are we going to go through Appendix D at all, or is this just meant for our reference? Well, then, therefore, I do have a question. And this might be something that, obviously from the commission, it's just a recommendation to you all. And the commissioners aren't aware of this, but I'm wondering, commissioners, if there are any bills in the Appendix D list, Attachment D, that you might feel we want to support, and would like the city to support. Now, I do realize that you can't go overboard and ask you to review more fully a huge number of bills, but if there are, let's say, a handful, 1 to 6 or 7 bills that we as commissioners feel that right now you've just got it listed as active, but we would like you to consider maybe more strongly supporting, would you mind that we do that? Would that be okay?
Do you want to make that an agenda item for a future meeting, perhaps?
And it would be agenda item, it would be something that one of us, I would have to make a motion, but I sort of wanted to get the feeling of the staff as to, I don't want to overburden you, but at the same time, I want the commissioners to have the opportunity to maybe weigh in on what we consider to be important that we would like to consider support for. And so it looks like, again, I don't want to go overboard. So shall I make a motion, guys? Are
Yeah, I
you?
have the exact same question, so, yeah.
Yeah, Bill, would you like to make the motion on that then?
Second.
Okay, all right. I move that we, the commissioners take another couple of months, and in the next meeting, September meeting, we weigh in on the bills that are identified in Appendix D and Attachment D and anything else, any other state bills, and come up with a list of not more than, say, 6 or 7 bills that we'd have to hammer that out, that we'd like to see the commission make recommendations to staff that they maybe work more fully on and really strongly consider support. That's a long way of saying it.
I have a question about that first, which is that for this September meeting, would that be too late into the legislative cycle to have the time for the city to implement whatever position they consider from the commission in that legislative year, based on the timeline of the state?
That's a good question. It would be too late.
Yeah.
So, commissioners, how shall we do that? Shall we all, because we really need to talk it through. We can't just send a list because we're all gonna have different ideas. Is there a way that we could have, first of all, how many, this isn't part of the motion, but how many people are simply interested in this process? Okay, so would it be possible to have a special meeting in advance? Either I don't know, we can change the date of the September meeting, but to have a special meeting.
So I guess another question to our constituents, both in clean energy and our organizations, is would such an endorsement be a helpful thing? Because the things that you support, I mean, it's all well and good, but if we go through trouble to do this endorsement, is it something that is useful to any of these organizations as a lever?
And I guess that's a good question. And when would we?
Because I don't want to shout into the wind,
Yeah.
so.
Right, and when would we have, if you feel that it's valuable, because again, as you all know, I'm trying to have the commission be a little more active, play more active role than just agreeing to things, that we actually participate.
And of course, and if not this legislative year, how do we get involved earlier?
Yeah.
Right. Would be useful.
Right. And is it, if there were enough people that we could create a way through the Brown Act to do this, when would you need to have that information?
For this year?
For this year? Or is it almost too late now?
Well, the recess will go till the 18th of August.
Okay. I think the legislative session ends September 12th.
That's right, September 12th is the end of session.
And of course, we don't know when these bills will go through for a vote, but.
Can I make
Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe the Climate Advisory Commission could do like a subcommittee for legislation and meet and come up with sort of a couple of the priorities. You know, our mayor and council adopts a legislative program every year, and it's very comprehensive, and it gives staff a good amount of delegated authority to interact on bills, take positions and stuff. But if there's something the Climate Advisory Commission would want us, a bill that we're not on currently or supporting, maybe a subcommittee can do that in a more quick
It'd
timeframe.
be faster.
And then just, you can communicate it back to staff and we can be in conversation with you on those bills. I don't know if that's
It would be an ad hoc committee and the number of people, what's the maximum number in an ad hoc committee? I'm not sure that, unfortunately, it places a burden on
less than a
Ann because
quorum,
you
right?
still have to be part of that meeting.
Yeah, and I think there's a limit on how long those can stand for. It can't be in perpetuity. Like, I want to say it's like 6 months or less that they can be.
Well, maybe for now, an ad hoc committee would serve our current purpose and then we could discuss more fully some other mechanism that the commission could have around legislation that is more permanent. But right now, to meet the needs of the moment, we almost have to do it very quickly then.
My only concern is that I know that we had our attorneys previously speak about some of the requirements for an ad hoc committee. I don't remember them all offhand. So I would just be hesitant without consulting them to know exactly like.
I think it's there's a maximum number and you have to participate in the meeting. That's about it, essentially.
It has to be a specific purpose, specific time, and less than a quorum.
Less than a quorum, thank you.
But purpose of an ad hoc committee is not to represent itself, but to represent or bring information back to the commission.
Right.
Yeah.
That gets us
that
back
won't
to the
work.
cycle.
Yeah.
By the time we meet again, the horse is out of the barn.
So it's getting back to having a
I mean,
special
lot of us-
meeting.
A lot of us, or a lot of, not me, but many people in the room are really into tracking the legislation and all the different bills and stuff like that. And there are many avenues by which people are commenting on this. You know, if you remember the Sierra Club or NRDC or one of these things, they're active. Is for the commission itself to sort of start doing this moment with this timing seems to me a little bit of a stretch and logistically might not be possible. A lot of people do have strong views on this and informed views, and I respect that.
Right.
We all have so many hours in our lives, and I'm not putting them into this. But
Yeah.
so,
So perhaps I want to consider something for the future then,
Yeah.
because it seems like we're kind of up against a wall here.
Mm-hmm.
But in the future, that maybe earlier in the season, that the commission could be brought in to comment on the support, the monitor, if that's possible.
Yeah. Scott, maybe a couple of us could just give you a call and talk about that and, talk about a new way of reaching out and communicating with the commission going forward. Does that work? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for everybody's comments. I rescind the motion at this point. Okay, well, and by the way, I don't know who put this attachment D together, but it's really impressive. I can't believe what you did here.
Team effort.
you guys do.
Okay.
How can, no wonder we have legislative roadblocks if you've got 100 different bills that are, in process at any one time. It's like,
2,000.
Yeah. Well, I don't think because we don't need to vote on this. We're not approving this. It's just a report back to us. So therefore, moving on to, thanks for everybody for being patient with me because I really, really want the commission to be able to participate. Thank you. Yeah.
I should have said something at the orders of the day, but is it possible to move, to switch items B and C we've got staff here for number C, and I'm wondering if we could just do that first so they can get home.
For, what, could you give me
So,
the name of
I'm
that?
looking at new
That's,
business.
so, yeah, let's go
Happy to
ahead and
stop.
do that. Let's move to, you would like to move B and C? Or
Just C, just
C?
the
All right, well,
integrated resource.
let's talk about the integrated, very, okay, that's fine, works for me. We'll move Manny's back, and, let's see here. So, this would be attachment F, everyone. And this is going to be, it's the integrated resource plan that will be presented by Jean Sol and Paul Inamorato?
Inamorato?
That's the one.
Inamorato, yeah. There'll be a test later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully not pronunciation.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, should we just jump into it?
Yes, please do.
So John and I will present on 2025 Integrated Resource Plan in the spirit of acronyms, largely referred to as IRP. So we'll go over if you go to the next slide, just a quick agenda. What is an IRP, the background? Our last IRP filing was in 2022, so we'll go over some of those goals, our progress to date, and then an update on what we're seeing in the long-term market for renewable resources. We'll review the regulatory requirements and then what our current plan is for IRP modeling and solicit feedback on that approach. Yeah, you can go forward 2 slides. So an IRP is a plan to identify the procurement priorities and targets to meet regulatory requirements for California. So emission targets, reliability targets, and doing that in a cost-effective manner. This process is done typically every 2 years. The last filing was delayed from 2024 to 2025. We'll look at the schedule in a couple of slides, and it's already showing signs of further delay. Typically filed in November. This will be filed in the earliest December 1st.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. So the IRP will outline how load-serving entities will meet the state emission targets, the state renewable portfolio standards, all while maintaining system reliability. And then it also guides procurement decisions, policymaking, and transmission planning. So other entities are using the output of the collective IRPs in their planning processes. Next slide, please.
Yeah, a question on that last slide. So it says that our goal was 60% by 2030?
This is the state goal.
State goal.
Yeah. Our goal is 60%. Was it last year? 2024. So San Jose Clean Energy is moving faster than the state.
Okay, because I just read an article this morning that we're at 67% already.
That's carbon free. That includes nuclear and hydro.
Okay, thank you.
And it was for one day.
No.
No.
That was the average of the year.
This is for the average for 2022. Yeah. Which is kind of cool.
All right.
I was impressed. I thought, wow.
Closer.
Okay, but yeah, you're right. Nuclear and yeah.
So how does the modeling work? Just in general, the California Public Utility Commission puts out a lot of key assumptions and inputs for LSCs to use in their modeling. Load forecasting we'll talk about is a huge component of that. There's a lot going on with that, particularly this year. Reduction targets, reliability goals, and then LSCs take that information back, conduct their modeling to develop a CPUC compliant portfolio. You're allowed to test other portfolios. We may have other scenarios we run or different views on what's happening in the market, which I don't think is unusual. And then we have to submit these plans back to the CPUC. Yeah, I think it's actually coming up on the next slide.
the inputs and assumptions for this cycle are delayed. They're typically out, I think, John, in May. And they've announced as of like 3 or 4 weeks ago that those are still not published yet. And so they've pushed out the filing. Can you go one slide more? So normally this slide would show us filing our IRP at the beginning of November. We've pushed it out to December. So we should be able to come back to this committee in September with findings from the modeling that we're doing and giving some information about what the modeling has selected to build a CPUC compliant portfolio and a portfolio that may do something else. And then we'll have to take that to our council. They approve our integrated resource plans before we file them with the CPUC. So we like to build in time in case we need to make adjustments to either the modeling or the narrative of these plans. Would you add anything on that section or?
The only thing I would add is that the CPUC is in the process of creating mandatory requirements in terms of what you put in the integrated resource plan that you file with them. So that was never the case. It used to be just purely a planning document. So one has to be really careful about what one files with the CPUC, because once one's filed that, one's going to be held to that. So we might have a certain portfolio that we file with the CPUC because we're fairly confident that we're going to want to do at least that, and have another portfolio for ourselves that is more aspirational.
Fined.
Either we get fined or the utilities get told to buy on our behalf. It's all still being worked out.
So for September, what will we likely be seeing? The simpler plan or the aspirational plan, or both?
Ideally both. Ideally both at that point. We'd like to take both plans to both our risk oversight committee and this committee so they can see the difference in those.
Thank you.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before, you have just one more slide, a little bit about local clean energy goals. San Jose Clean Energy is the community choice aggregator for the city of San Jose, which enables us to, as Jean mentioned, set out for more aspirational goals and work to achieve those based on council direction. So to date, if you can just go forward one more slide, we've contracted for a bit over 1 gigawatt of new renewable and energy storage resources. This map is available on our website. You can see it's a pretty diverse range of resources locationally and technologically and some structurally in their contract as well around firm delivered solar. So we've made a lot of progress. If you go one more slide forward, this is the plan that Jean was mentioning as our compliant case. So in 2022, we did an IRP and it spits out a shopping list of what it is we need to procure. And this is what it said we need to procure to meet our share of the 2022 IRP. It's a snapshot in time. The market changes, mandates come out, rules change, and so you don't necessarily end up procuring exactly what your IRP plan says to procure. We have, sorry, did you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, so just looking at this, it looks like roughly 200 megawatts out of the roughly 1,000 is from natural gas.
Yeah.
Why are we still procuring?
Yeah,
natural gas?
so natural gas, on the reliability side of the IRP, there's a need to have resources available 24/7 to meet the demand of the grid. It doesn't necessarily mean it's running.
Yeah.
So to do that affordably, because you could alternatively overbuild other technologies or early adopt some technologies, it selects natural gas. And then I see the question. In our case, what we've done is we've co-located storage at that same interconnection to cannibalize the runtime of the natural gas resource. So the theory of it is the majority of the time that natural gas resource is just sitting there idle, available in peak market conditions. And then depending on the size of the storage, if it's 1 hour, 4 hour, 8 hour, it is running daily, leveraging that interconnection on the grid.
Wouldn't the hope be that you would like to have 100% renewable?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's true. I think this is a pathway to get to 100% renewable. And in our case, these natural gas resources are not necessarily retiring any later because of our IRP selection. They're found in other system and ISO models.
So how does this tie into the 2030 plan of being climate neutral?
Yeah.
It just doesn't really jibe with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is an annual goal. It's not an hourly matching goal. And so we need to supply the same amount of megawatt hours we consume on an annual basis to the grid. We need to show that we gave the grid the same number of clean megawatt hours. That's not necessarily going to line up hour for hour, on a real-time basis with the actual system mix because of reliability requirements and many other grid dynamics. And I saw a couple other hands or comments.
So yeah, I was gonna ask you if you could separate out the storage component from the natural gas component. Like, how much of that is is there gonna be 200 megawatts of storage and then also 200 megawatts capacity of natural?
1 to 1.
1 to 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you have a 3-year compliance period or 4-year or what is
For
it?
the that's 3 years for the RPS requirement.
Yeah, the RPS compliance periods are 3 years. The resource adequacy requirements are monthly and annual.
I see. Okay. So my question, you say here you have a marginal remaining requirements to meet this 2022 IRP. Is this were you off by 5%, 10% roughly, or
Yeah.
small?
Yeah, it's 5 to 10%, as if you saw my notes. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's the snapshot in time at the 2022 IRP planning. So we have updated load forecasting that may not be exactly the same as what we did in 2022. We're just trying to keep an apples to apples representation here. The 2025 IRP modeling will show our updated load forecast and other aspects of the portfolio.
So briefly, what did you get wrong in 22?
I don't know that we got anything.
Nothing bad happened, I know
wrong.
that.
I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit in a couple of slides. There have been procurement mandates, so to avoid double procuring what our IRP said and what the CPUC says in a separate order, and there's some discussion in the presentation about trying to bring together these ad hoc procurement orders and the IRP cycle. What's available in the market, I think there's a different reality in what the CPUC thinks is available and what's actually contractable and deliverable. That deliverable aspect is I think in a couple of aspects. Like, one, do we actually think it can get built? But then also, can it deliver all of the products that we need? So we really need energy, resource adequacy, which is that reliability product, and we need RECs. And we want to try to hit as many of those as possible with any given project. And so we have to adapt as we go through time to see what else is going on in the portfolio and the exact shapes of what it is we bought, all that sort of stuff.
Recs are.
Renewable energy credits used in the RPS program.
Rio, you have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna clarify what storage is, batteries, right? You're
Yes,
effectively.
all of our storage is batteries.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. So I mean, in essence, then, right? Because storage is not really generation. You're looking at roughly 2-to-1 energy generation in terms of clean versus natural gas. Am I looking at right? Right? Yeah, you're looking at 372 is almost exactly the sum of solar and wind, plus 36, so that's about 400, give or take a couple, and then you're looking at natural gas of 200. So yeah, you're looking at 400 to 200, about 2-to-1, right? I just wanted to clarify that so that I could do that math in my head. Thank you.
This storage is 4-hour number?
the storage on the natural gas? We have two natural gas.
Sorry, the upper one.
The storage is a mixture of 4-hour, 5-hour, and 8-hour storage. The vast majority of it is 4-hour storage. I would say 300 megawatts of it is 4-hour storage.
So you said in the September meeting we'll have a briefing on another plan, right? Is
Yes.
it going to look something like this?
Yeah, I presentation wise, unsure, but the intent is to bring to you what is the 2025 IRP modeling saying we need to do now going forward.
Will we be able to look at, or will we get more information on like the assumptions and what went into those math?
Part of this meeting is to find out what it is you guys would like to see, and as we go into that modeling exercise, if there's any considerations you think we should make. Because we try to run at least two cases, one to submit compliant and one for an internal case, and then a couple of other sensitivities around the portfolio. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the assumptions we've already made. Any other comments or questions?
Can I ask
Yeah, oh,
questions
please.
now or?
Yes, please do.
So at the bottom, your notes, you're talking about potential growth from data centers. Are you gonna be, the next presentation that you give, are you gonna be talking about data centers and whether San Jose Clean Energy is going to be supplying that or PG&E?
This is the question. This is the question of the season. We talk a little bit now about data centers later in this presentation. The load forecast that goes into the IRP is from the IPER, which I think stands for Integrated Energy Policy Report, and the CEC puts together a forecast, and then LSCs get their proportional share. That forecast includes data center load assumptions that the state has come up with. It doesn't necessarily mean we agree or disagree with those assumptions, but we have to use that load forecast. So I think one of the cases we will build will be our representation of what we think the reality of that state forecast is. So if they're projecting, and we'll see the slides, there's one slide on it, tremendous growth, we may believe that to be true, but maybe at a different rate than what the state thinks. So we will bring forward that sort of information.
And you're gonna describe what you're thinking as to why you think that's the right amount?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you would add anything on the data centers, or I know others have been looking at it. But yeah, we're having those discussions now. It's a very challenging question. There's a lot of speculative load that's out there. There's double dipping for the same location from different developers. And so trying to filter through that is a challenge for all LSCs and the state as well.
How is the interface with water too? Like, how do those conversations interface with the water use?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question. We can take that back. We don't, in clean energy, look at the other utility side of the demand. We're just looking at the electrical side.
We should keep going because the presentation is gonna get into some of these topics.
Yeah. Here we go. So apologies for the chart, but the punchline is the top line in that graph is the latest California Energy Commission's load forecast for the state. And you can see they are grappling with tremendous load growth. And there's really two main drivers. One is large load data centers, which are these chunky, I think folks are familiar with these chunky demand centers that come in and just need a ton of energy. And then the other equally large piece is electrification and transportation. And that could be a slower drip. It's across many customers. And so those are both very challenging load forecasting questions. The CEC has, they work with the utilities to come up with these forecasts, and they put probabilities and those sorts of things and publish that in their assumptions for LSCs to use in their forecasting. I don't know any of them off the top of my head, but they may say, for example, look, your guys are showing 100% growth or 100% demand growth. We put a 60% probability on that actually happening as they calculate their load forecast. The CEC, that is.
And I mean, I'll just say with regards to that is something that is ongoing. Probably, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but probably the reason why the IRP has gotten pushed out this year is for the state to come to grips with what is an appropriate assumption. This was the CEC's first go-round, and they basically just included everything that the IOUs gave them. And the IOUs gave them anybody who's ever talked to us about data centers. That was included. So, for example, for us, they projected that I think we'd have 200 extra megawatts in 2026 and like 1,000 extra megawatts by 2030, somewhat out there. And we know there will not be 200 extra megawatts in 2026 because nobody's building. I mean, we know, do they have a permit? Do they have an interconnection? Is anybody digging? Those are, those are important things. And so we've had a conversation with the CEC about, we got to be a lot more careful about this because that load forecast then becomes the basis of the IRP. And if we have to build to that load forecast, and then it turns out that instead of 1,000 megawatts, we end up with an extra 200 megawatts, we've now bought 800 megawatts more than what we needed, and that would be highly problematic. And, even if you were right that it was all of these data centers, there's questions, as you said, are they going to be our customer, PG&E's customer, direct access? Are they going to have on-site generation? Are they going to want to bring to us resources that they've already bought? All of those issues go into it. So it is a very delicate issue. And I think that both the CEC and the CPUC are struggling with what is the load forecast going to be for this next IRP, given that significant uncertainty, not only about data centers, but also about electrification, particularly given the changes in federal policy.
I have a question. I understand the data center problem. Question about electrification. What's going on like this past year, 2 years on, say, San Jose's load and the state as a whole? You should have hard data on that, right?
it's frankly our risk management organization is at this moment trying to get their hands around what are appropriate assumptions about electrification. I believe that in 2023, the CEC forecasted that something like, I mean, don't quote me, but I think it's something like 800 megawatts of additional load could be expected in San Jose due to electrification. So it's also a really significant number. But in terms of what actually has happened, Paul, I don't know, like from last year to this year, if you know off the top of your head whether our load has been mostly stable or whether it certainly hasn't been dramatic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't, and it's because it hasn't been dramatic, but there's netting effects in there too. I don't, maybe there's more NEM customers and it's hard to say without looking at it closely.
Can you see any trend effects from electric vehicle charging?
No,
I'm buying a lot of electricity that way. I didn't used to.
Yeah.
Everybody in my neighborhood is too. It's a significant portion of my total residential load.
And those are significant customers now. So we do see that, on top of what most people are doing at their homes. Yeah.
But actually, you should know, I mean, actually, I'm always confused on this. Do you guys have clarity on what's roughly some guesstimates of how much people are generating themselves and consuming behind the meter?
We, nor does the CEC, just to point that out, actually.
You have permit, I mean, you have all the permit information.
We're
so-
actually, right now, we're in the process of trying to get better numbers on that. We've asked PG&E and we've asked our planning department, and hopefully the twain shall meet.
So we were talking, I don't know if you recall, but I remember we were talking about 1%, 2%, maybe 3%, sort of different numbers. 3% would be the high end on growth per year due to electrification. A year or two ago, I remember these numbers. No, we don't know.
All we can say is that it's in the aggregate, it's flat, basically.
Yeah.
Flat to slightly up.
Because I don't see how you could protect the growth with the elimination of the credits. And, I think that's gonna put a big squash. I mean, you can't project what's been happening and forward in the next few years if the federal government's saying we're not gonna give you any
I'm
help.
only asking what's happened up this
To
past
this
year.
point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what Zach is saying is that the efficiency looks like it's largely offset the electrifications if our overall loads haven't really moved.
Yeah.
And then we have the wild card of what may happen with the data centers with double jeopardy with the CPC.
Yeah, that's a different thing. It's efficiency plus now.
Yeah.
Yeah, has offset any transportation stuff.
Yeah, the solar panels, but.
Yeah. But we should keep going.
It's very hard to, no one's measuring the output of the solar panels. Well, individually, they might, but
Yeah,
they're
but
not
you
collecting that. No, it's hard to know because my next door neighbor has a capacity factor of 20%. I have a 15% capacity factor. He's got trees, whatever, it's just hard.
It's not possible to get exact numbers.
No facts.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, shall we?
Yeah, we
continue
can
on?
continue on. So this is an update on where the market has been and where it is. We talked a little bit about this in the legislative update. Sean is really close to. So this is representative of long-term new build facilities by technology. Again, where we were, where we're at now, and some of the reasoning why. Do you want to talk a bit about what's going on in the market?
I mean, I think what's really important is that there's been disruption after disruption. We had COVID, we had supply chain issues, then we had the issues about the Uyghur concerns, and the state has continued to have very aggressive decarbonization goals. The good news is so do cities, so do a lot of the really big customers. So everybody's chasing the same limited supply. The result of that has been that when I was trying to enter into agreements 5 years ago, you can see that's kind of generally what the prices were. Solar was about 25, storage was, $6 to $7 per kW month. Wind was about 40, out-of-state wind, actually in-state wind was a little more expensive, out-of-state wind was about 40, and geothermal was something like 70. Now, in the solicitations and conversations, and this is before you account for tariffs and the loss of the tax credits, we're looking at $50 a megawatt solar, $16 a kW month batteries, $100 per megawatt wind, and $125 I've seen $165 a megawatt hour for geothermal. There's a nice chart that the CPUC did that also shows that.
So there used to be this notion that would float around saying generation costs have kind of been flat or even come down. This doesn't.
That is not.
That's incorrect.
Hopefully one would think, and what I expected and hope to see is technological development that would drive down these costs. But what's actually happening is supply cannot keep up with demand. And there have been all of these traumatic events out there, and prices are going up. Now, what should we assume about prices going out into the future? That is very hard to predict. We know that the incentives are sunsetting. Question, I would not bank on their coming back even after this presidency. We know that there is incredible turmoil in terms of tariffs. Hopefully that will settle down after this presidency. But, in some ways, it's the good news that I think, regardless of what anybody says at the federal government level or whatever, that there is an extremely, extremely urgent demand for renewables. And as long as that's the case, there are going to be, folks like us trying to compete with the Googles of the world who are also trying to contract for renewable energy. And that's likely going to keep prices high.
Is gas done the same thing?
Gas, I should know the costs for gas. On a dollars per megawatt hour basis, of course, it depends dramatically on the cost of gas, which fluctuates over the course of the year.
Yeah. I heard 75 a megawatt hour on a podcast today by chance for new build gas.
Compared to?
Yeah.
But the capital costs of gas turbines and combined cycles have not jumped the way these have. Or have they?
Recently, because of the whole data center thing.
The data center thing. Okay, all right. So, there's technological progress and things we get cheaper, you get better at building things. But then there's sort of market forces which can swamp capacity in all of these things. And right now we're hitting a lot of that. And you don't forget how to make them cheap, but these things take time to work out. And what you don't want to do is buy a lot of it. And then 5 years from now, both technological progress and increased capacity and, come in and you're like PG&E holding bag on all these expensive contracts.
Glenn, this is a California snapshot.
Yeah, I understand.
Globally, the technology has gotten dirt cheap.
Got that.
But the handcuffs that we put on ourselves is this.
Yeah.
And the regionalization.
But it's kind of a little interesting because
Well,
like
well, I'm
overall
gonna-
the demand hasn't increased.
Glenn, I'm
much.
going to
Okay.
ask a question first.
hold your thought, though. We're at 8 o'clock, just about, so I know this is an important conversation, and I'm happy to keep going, but I want to ask all the commissioners, we still have a little more to discuss in the report, and then we have Manny's attachment that we have to go through. So we still have probably a minimum of another 20 or 30 minutes of time. If you all are willing to, hang in here, I'm fine with it, but I want to make sure that that's going to be fine with the commission as a whole, that we can continue going forward. Any thoughts from others? Are you fine? Okay. Is that okay? I see heads nodding, okay.
I love it.
Okay, then please continue.
So I have
Glenn?
one question in the same article, it talks about California being almost twice the electricity costs of the rest of the country. And you said something about the constraints we put on ourselves. Could you kind of just elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, I'm not, no value judgments on these constraints, but
Okay.
no project gets built without a union labor contract, that's one. All of the soft costs associated with permitting in this, the way the transmission queue and all that stuff. Jean mentioned the Uyghur labor concerns and that, verifying that a panel was or was not made by Uyghur labor and all that was involved in that. The tariffs with China, so just those flavors of things.
And I would add that, these procurement mandates have been on load-serving entities with penalties if we don't meet our targets and without any consideration of what's actually out there. And, at the end of the day, we're negotiating with suppliers. They know that if we don't get these agreements, we're going to be penalized. And the costs and the quality of the contracts that are now market are very detrimental to customers because they know that if I want to hold the line, they can go to another CCA that's in even more need to comply with the CPUC requirements. So there's been an absence of considering who you're giving bargaining chips to in these negotiations on the part of the CPUC.
My little problem with that is at the same time, if there's a lot of money to be made, you would think there'd be more supply coming in, right? I mean, you'd be attracting more.
But the thing is, it takes time to develop projects. There's the interconnection queue, there's the getting your supply agreements in place with all of this, supply chain stuff. So yes, there's all this money. You'd think there are a lot of people coming in, but they can't get things online because they can't get into the ISO interconnection queue. Even if they get there, the IOUs are delayed in terms of when they interconnect you or in terms of when they make upgrades to the transmission system that allow these things to work in terms of reliability. So it's just not an industry where it's easy to add widgets quickly.
So the trailer bills you expect should help things out, right?
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit, just high level. Between IRP cycles, there's always a chance that the modeling approach and valuation of resources and how they qualify for different obligations in the IRP process are different when it comes to things like the month ahead and year ahead filing. There was a substantial change that first been in discussion for a couple of years. 2025 is the first year of implementation called Slice of Day, which is a change in the valuation of how resources qualify for resource adequacy. A big change to the way LSCs realize value from storage and solar and wind changed substantially under this program. And then as we've talked about, this RCPP, Reliable Clean Power Procurement Plan, is this proposed decision to live underneath the IRP that would create binding procurement obligations and penalize LSCs for not bringing online new resources. It just closed for comment, and the devil is in the details. There's a couple of different proposals within it, but it has potential to change how procurement happens and the value of the resources being procured. Next slide, please. So this is the state requirements versus San Jose clean energy goals. The compliant case requires us to have emissions no greater than our proportional share of 30 million metric tons by 2030 and 25 million metric tons by 2035. That's done to maintain pace with the carbon neutrality goal by 2045. And then meeting the RPS goal by 2030. San Jose, we're already achieving the 60% renewable content as of 2024. And then as it relates to the state requirements, 65% of your renewable portfolio standard needs to come from long-term agreements. So that's really forcing that long-term new build aspect. Instead of us just sitting in a short-term market, filling our position, we have to be building new resources to be compliant with these. And then let alone if a procurement mandate comes out that requires long-term commitments, as we've seen in previous orders. And then, goals around San Jose Clean Energy's goal for carbon neutrality, the affordability of that, depending on the load forecasting that we're seeing and the prices we're seeing in the market, we'll be able to model those scenarios as well. So our approach, if you can go forward just 2 slides, obviously is to maintain compliance with state requirements, maintain flexibility to meet our goals affordably. As the gentleman here said earlier, avoiding long-term procurement in this expensive market that we're in, and then being stranded with these resources. And then if just one more slide, we did do an initial run with a hypothetical lower load boundary. So that's just that status quo load, very limited growth. I think it's like 1%, 2% we put in the modeling. But we maintained more aggressive emission standards. So the result of that modeling exercise was we would need 200 megawatts of wind, 110 megawatts of storage, 60 megawatts of solar by 2030 to achieve the carbon reduction goals in that scenario. So this is kind of just an initial run. It helps us calibrate the model, get everything up to date, use the latest inputs and assumptions. But it's not our compliant portfolio and it's not additional scenarios. So internally, we've been thinking about what scenarios to run that may or may not go into the compliance filing. A high load growth scenario, which is kind of what you were talking about earlier with data center load growth or electrification. How do we come up with that forecast? What is our logic? But that is an important scenario to us. Resource availability and pricing. This, I think, is a big one. And I know Sean is very passionate about the reality of what is in the market being offered versus what is in, the theoretical papers that are out there. And so a scenario around what does it look like with resources that we believe and at the pricing they're being shown to us at. And then a scenario with different emission content. So these are not finalized scenarios. I think that's a big part of why we're here. If folks have feedback on any of these considerations, load, technology, just kind of open to hearing what folks think. I think this is our, we have next steps on the last slide, but it says open discussion, which we've been having. So, if you can just go one more slide. If folks have feedback, we're starting our modeling. Again, we've already run a case, so we'd like to hear anything folks feel strongly about in consideration for a scenario we might be interested in running.
Let me start, let's just say the way you frame this and the way you discuss this gives me much more confidence than I felt from prior IRP conversations. And maybe it's just because I've watched you in action so long and won me over, but the idea of trying to sort of stay flexible as much as you possibly can, that what's doing it to us and what's hurting us is ourselves, meaning the CPUC. It seems ironic that there's all this push on affordability, but it's sort of hammering down weird stuff while the fundamental factor isn't being addressed, which is frustrating as a citizen and an energy guy. But I like what I've seen, and I like what you've done. And I would think that portfolio that you put up, that was sort of the hypothetical, you'd be pretty happy to get away with that because it's a small fraction of what you've already nailed down, and you'd have 5 years to add it. But that doesn't matter. It just, but it's hypothetical.
Again, just, so we have our base case. It came out with 200 megawatts of wind. I think part of the reason why it came out with 200 megawatts of wind is because we have a fair amount of solar plus storage in our portfolio, and we need generation to get us across the night, particularly in light of the RA 24-hour requirement. I don't think I can buy 200 megawatts of wind the way things are out there. It doesn't exist.
Even in 5 years, are you required in state?
It's not required to be in state. For out of state, the feds are not going to allow or promote wind on any federal land or transmission for wind on any federal land. And even before the whole thing with the feds, transmission to out-of-state wind is problematic. That's not to say it couldn't happen. We're continuing to work with people. We've spent many, many months talking to different transmission providers, trying to negotiate a deal. And, they're not ready. They give you a price, you send them a PPA, they don't answer your calls for 3 months. 3 months later, they're like, oh, never mind that price. Actually, they're not ready. It's not to say there isn't any wind out there. The best thing would be some of the existing wind projects are getting repowered, and those offer the best opportunity, but everybody's chasing them. We are too. So again, it's not a matter of we can't do it. It's a matter of, the model comes out with these recommendations. That's great. Question is, what's really going to be out there? And for this particular run, because, to a certain extent, we do all this fancy modeling, which says, okay, an ideal situation would be X. That's very nice, but then there's what's actually out there. If we constrain the model to what's really out there, there's really not a lot of flexibility. It's like, what are you doing modeling for? The bottom line is you're going to buy what you can get, and that's what it's going to be. So, you want to have the information, you want to understand in an ideal world what would be best. And then you have to live with what's really going on out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So that sort of wraps up your presentation. All right, so, well, thank you very much for that. I think let's move on to, Manny, to one more, I guess it would be, attachment E, the recommendation of the city council on resolution in support of polluters. Manny, do you want to just, highlight, your letter and I would love to have everyone refocus and if there's any comments, both from the public and from the commissioners, so that we can, move this forward.
Yes, should we begin with a presentation of the item or with public comment?
Pardon me?
Should we begin with a presentation of the item or with public comment?
Oh,
on the item?
definitely, let's do the presentation of the item so the public comment can be, have some, basis of understanding the content.
Okay, so the major message of the letter is agreement with the city's position taken to support the paired Senate Bill 684 and Assembly Bill 1243, Polluters Pay Superfund bill. But now specifically that it's been moved to a 2-year status, we're further recommending that the Intergovernmental Relations Team or member of City Council introduce to City Council a resolution in support of this legislation that will be voted on by the City Council. I think this is important because the official support of the city, well, that can make it through the state legislatures. The city can express its opinion in Sacramento. It's not visible to the public. The public is not aware of this. There's not this kind of publicity in solidarity with the effort of community advocates, with places like Los Angeles that have been affected by climate disasters, and the city of Los Angeles recently passed a resolution in support of the bill unanimously. So I think this furthering of the city's official position of support to an actual resolution by the city council would align with the core priority laid out in the 2025 legislative program, which is pursuing funding for equitable, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure and accelerating San Jose's climate smart goals. The letter lists all the ways that it would do that, a number of semi-related legislative goals as well would be addressed, like job creation and environmental justice. The city of San Jose is clearly vulnerable to climate disasters, and so could serve to benefit from the funds generated by this bill to assist in retrofitting in anticipation of disasters and rebuilding after them. And I think we can all be in agreement with the city's position that the large multinational fossil fuel corporations are responsible for those decades of pollution, but the cost of that pollution is passed on to ordinary people impacted by disasters, to taxpayers and local governments. And this is a unique opportunity to return that financial burden to the entities responsible. So in all, I've attached a sample resolution at the end, sending the message to the legislature as well as the citizenry who are strongly supportive of the bill. There's been statewide polling about 70% supportive of a climate superfund bill. So the resolution is attached after the letter.
Any questions, comments from the public?
Haven't read the letter or the resolution, but based on the summary you just gave, I'd be in support of you guys passing it.
Please do, go ahead.
I likewise am in favor of you guys supporting it.
Just to offer a little bit of a different perspective here. First off, let me just say I do definitely support this resolution. To offer a little bit of a different perspective, let me just say that I'm kind of part of a generation that when I was growing up, in elementary school, I was looking at the sky turning orange skies day. And sometimes to me, it felt like wildfires have been going on since as long as I can remember. And I know that the research says that wildfires will continue going on and will be getting worse, and the drought season is going to be getting worse. So this bill is pretty important to me because it makes a way to sustainably generate revenue without worsening the budget deficit, while also allowing us to catch up to the rising climate costs. Otherwise, I feel like sometimes it seems like we're in a losing race where the climate costs are just going to continue rising, and without holding someone accountable or without worsening the budget deficit, it's just going to continue like this. So in my opinion, I think that it's really important to raise publicity for this bill, to really make a strong push for this bill, and I think this resolution should be really important to present to the city council. So yeah, that's my point. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I just want to understand this a little bit more. Like this one, it's that once if this is passed, the state will collect revenue from all these fossil fuels companies, and then that'll trickle down to the city. So
Yes, so if the bill is passed at the state level, the Cal EPA will do an assessment of fossil fuel polluters' contribution to the economic impacts of climate change within California. And then those above a certain threshold of emissions will be charged a fee based on their proportion of the economic costs, which will be collected in a super fund for projects related to climate resiliency, adaptation, mitigation, that will be dispersed throughout the state. And I think there are a lot of, obviously, places that San Jose and the surrounding region could benefit from the funding of those efforts.
Money's good. How much, if they say the damages are $12 trillion to the state of California, is that how much would be assessed on the companies that are held or that were identified as being the emitters?
My best understanding is that it will be assessed based on their amount of emissions contributing to the percentage of those impacts. Because the study hasn't been done yet, they haven't released the number, but I've seen estimates, several, potentially hundreds of billions. I've not seen trillions.
I mean, obviously, these numbers are very hard to estimate because in much of them, in the past, how much was attributable to chance versus rent, historical things, all those is sort of hard. Then a lot of what I see when they talk about a cost of climate, where the EPA has a number for sort of a damage number associated, that's a whole set of modeling that looks to the future. This is looking ex post, but somehow looking at what's happened so far and trying to make an estimate of how much of it was climate damages. When they get that number, is that the amount, though, they're going to try to collect? Or are they going to pick some other amount, having done that, maybe presumably less, and then go and allocate that on an emission basis? So are they going to try to collect the damages, or are they going to just collect a number after they've done a study?
I am not sure. I believe it would be based on the corporations that they are charging. It would be based on their proportion of the overall damages. I don't know whether they would.
Yeah, so the question is, what's the denominator, right? Are we gonna, so let's say if the calculated damage is $1 trillion, are we gonna divide the $1 trillion, or are we gonna say max number of dollars we can charge to corporations is, say, I'm making up a number, $1 billion, and we're gonna divide $1 billion by, say, company A was responsible for 40%, company B was responsible for 30%, so we're gonna charge, 700 million to company A or 700 billion to company A, right? There's the devil's in that detail. Is that what you're trying to point out?
Yeah, that's an important one factor that seems important to me. curious what the plan, I mean, this is a bill, right, that we're being asked to support. Somebody has probably specified that somewhere, and the lady with her hand up might have an answer.
Sure, I just wanted to point something out here about the costs. There's actually a section about the bill that says that one of the main priorities that they're trying to do is minimize, of course, the like trickle down towards the consumers. Because one thing that I noticed about a lot of these, like generally about a lot of these bills, is whenever, like, of course, you're trying to put restrictions on fossil fuel companies. I don't know if this is directly related to what you were saying, but they're trying to put restrictions to fossil fuel companies. It can either be too much or it can not be enough. So the thing I was looking at there was the thing that they were saying is that it's not going to apply to all the fossil fuel companies. It depends on which ones are either doing the most. And if they are doing the most, then they're going to be doing a calculation to make sure that it's not going to be trickling down towards the consumer.
So they go for Chevron, but not Rotten Robbie?
Yeah. So it's that kind of calculation. And also,
I will say that there are ways you can proportionalize it if you go back and look at the emissions. What I find, though, is kind of weird is where you draw the line at the emissions, because I didn't use any gasoline getting here tonight, right? Although some gas was burned to put the battery, to charge my battery. But maybe none of us spent any money or used any gasoline to get here tonight. But the gasoline, who's the polluter? Is it the guy who sold me the gasoline, or is it the company, or is it me who bought it? And I have a problem with sort of going downstream. Do then, can say Chevron then come back to me and say, hey, you bought gasoline all these years. Now we've been dinged. We were doing this because you wanted it. And ask to recover that, or do you take the people that had put the Chevron in their S&P 500 retirement fund and go dock the? I have trouble with sort of the conceptual side of this. I mean, if we could go back in time, would we sort of take out the guy who invented the internal combustion engine? And, we wouldn't have this problem, but we'd still be, have horses.
I have another slightly different question, because I haven't read the bill. So does it define the formula, the specific formula for the costs associated with the penalties? Or is the bill set up to establish this fund, and then another bill will be required to actually, once they've done the modeling and developed the specific cost scenarios, and even, I think there is an indication of where they cut off, who are the polluters that they're gonna go at, the emission polluters are gonna go after. But, without those specifics, it's about how they're going to allocate the funds or the requirement for penalty. It leaves it very open-ended. Do you know what that bill includes? And if there's a stipulation that will be, that the public will be able to, or the state will be able to define or say yes or no, approve or not approve their formulas?
So the bill would direct CaliPay to complete the study. I don't know whether or what formulation it provides for CaliPay to do that study.
Well, it just seems to me, do we need to know that? Obviously, that number is not knowable right now. What is the amount of potential penalty or cost here? Do we need that in order to make this vote? Or do we want to just say, hey, we want to do it, whatever that, if that's 12 billion or 2 billion or whatever that number is that we're divvying up, we want that number divvied up.
Yes, I agree with that. Symbolically, I mean,
So,
It's more of a.
Yeah.
To me, this speaks to whether this is thought out, all right? And I know that lots of things would have to be worked out. I don't need to know how they would be worked out, but these kind of things matter to me. Would it be their emissions, Chevron's emissions from California, or would it be their worldwide? Those, it kind of, people like money, right? If somehow we can get the shareholders or whatever of Chevron to give us a few billion to do what we believe will be good things, that's something people can vote on and that's what they're doing. But it seems ad hoc to me by nature without knowing these things. It makes me sort of reluctant, even though the details aren't worked out.
So in the interest of time, I'd like to move that we take it to a vote, because I don't think we're going to convince Victor, and I'm perfectly happy with him voting against it. And that's fine. And I would argue that we are neither subject matter experts on the air or legislative analysts, but we need to, I think Manny's right in saying this is directionally correct what we want to do. And we need to trust the legislature and their advisors to go in the right direction, and it's beyond our scope, beyond my personal scope at least, to do that. So I move that we take this to a vote.
I just have one thing to add before doing so, which is that since the bill is on a 2-year track, it still stands to have a lot of amendments added between now and the end of January. So the current version of the bill is very much subject to change. So the details, I imagine, will continue to be worked out through the coming.
However, the wording of your pronouncement, I think, is in line with the intent of the commission, and therefore I would, I move that we take it to a vote.
Is there a second?
Yes.
So we have a motion to accept the letter, to recommend it to the council, and we have a second from Bill. Are there any other comments? If not, can we vote for all aye in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
No.
2. Well, I think that's both points of view are valid, if I may
Yes.
point that out. So we have, let's see, how many people are here tonight? 9?
9.
So we have 7 in favor and 2 opposed. Oh, that's right,
We have
Glenn
one,
is
I guess.
gone.
We can call that an abstention still, right?
Yeah, I think we probably would do that. Glenn abstains. Okay, so you can make that.
So
notation.
does the motion therefore pass?
Yes, and the motion passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Manny, for putting that together.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, next meeting is scheduled for September 18th. Again at 6 p.m. I know this is late, but I will ask anyway. Are there any items that commissioners would like to see added to the agenda?
I'll just briefly summarize the work plan items. So I know we said the IRP was gonna come back with the modeling. And then we have the climate smart plan update and semi-annual program update, which is also going to include the 2023 greenhouse gas inventory summary. And then also the follow-up on the PBCE setback and noise ordinance changes.
And at the risk of being a rat hole, maybe talk about adding sort of our policy. And we did come at the discussion is what is sort of our policy and direction for talking about approving or recommending legislation to the city council, because again, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. And we can either bring it up on an ad hoc basis, or we can decide as a commission if we have a policy for handling that. I don't know exactly, but it's sort of put on the agenda saying, adding it at least as a possible agenda item.
Yeah, we'll definitely add that. So we'll definitely, I think that's.
Right, and it's something that we can put at the end of the agenda and defer if we run out of time.
Okay.
So I want to make sure, you wanted to discuss like an ad hoc committee or something for.
Discuss, you basically, set the goals and objectives of an ad hoc committee for legislation policy for the group.
Okay.
Because we clearly missed the opportunity, I think, for this window, but it sounds like there's enough interest that we may, and maybe the discussion will be that we were deciding we're not, taking a position on legislation except on an ad hoc basis as individual commissioners come, but we can make that a list.
Yeah.
So, but because of the, Brown Act, we want to have that, so if the members of the public have an opinion on it, they can weigh in.
Okay, sure. Any other items for the agenda? All right, well, if there's no further discussion, anything else from the
Yeah, but
public?
we get the light fixed for the next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds like a good
Do we
idea.
need a
Any other
vote after
comments
that?
from the public? No,
27B
if
stroke
there's no
6.
further discussion, then is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Oh, we don't have to move to
Bill moves,
adjourn.
is there a second?
You don't have to vote on adjournment.
Oh, we
You
don't?
can
All right,
just-
then I guess I will just say, meeting